Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Canada. I'm here with Bubba Starts, and this is Get Real with Bubba. Oh, Sarah and Bubba. Bubba, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm so good, Sarah. We just got back from Minneapolis. We had a great week up there, just being ourselves, doing our thing. Yeah. What have you been up to?
Well, who's us?
Me and my beautiful wife Danielle. We
Okay.
were
Well,
yeah, spent 4 days up in Minneapolis and yeah, just doing our thing. We had a couple of shows. We had scene projects, songwriter showcase that we did at a really cool bar called the Midway Saloon. They were just really gracious to us to let us call all of our friends and to bring them out to perform. We recorded the whole thing with broadcast level production, right? So we recorded the video and we're really looking forward to editing that out and putting it out into the world as podcasts now. So a really big weekend for us.
that is amazing. Yep, I followed some pictures and some videos, and looks like you might have got yourself a new hat. I don't know,
I
something
got a lot
along
more
those
than that, but
that.
I'll show it off. So for
That
those of you
is
that aren't following me on social media yet, born around the Chicago area, was kind of grew up a Bears fan, and they were so incredibly awful for most of my life that I have finally seen the light, and my wife Danielle has brought me to being a Vikings fan, and we got to go to my first game as an official Vikings fan on Monday Night Football. They were playing my former beloved Bears and they kicked the snot out of them. And I felt so justified in doing it. You know what it's like, Sarah? It's like going through a breakup, right? Going through a breakup, and it was a bad relationship the whole time anyway. But then, like, finally getting away from it and then seeing that person out with someone who's even yeah that's kind of on their level, right? That's a total loser. That's a total
so.
loser. And that's what it felt like watching last night as the Vikings, the new girlfriend just dominated, and it was cool. It was yeah, and something we talk about a lot is obviously relationships. So I thought it would be a cool correlation between a little bit of sports and football and that we love, and kind of working it into the more serious topics that we like to talk about here.
Well, I do like that because I'm not a huge sports fan in any way. So I told him, I'm like, hey, sports, not probably not going to talk about that much. However, it does seem like somebody who's a sports fan always follows the same team. My dad always, my whole life, Green Bay Packers, Green Bay Packers, Green Bay Packers, and it's like,
Yes.
do people change? Or they're just a diehard fan no matter what?
Well, I mean, that's the thing I'm dealing with now, right? Is that I am, to some, I'm a traitor, right? I
You're
am
definitely a
leaving,
traitor.
I am leaving this team and and going on, but honestly, the team left me. What really was the final straw for me was last week, Sarah. They just quit. The team was getting the crap kicked out of them. I watched two drives and said, I don't see any effort out there. I'm not seeing these 53 men who get paid big money to go do a job that's a game. They play a game for a living. And I watched them quit on me and the whole city of Chicago. And I'm not down with that anymore. I've seen it with this team over and over again. I'm 38 years old. I've always rooted for the same team, but they keep rolling out the same crappy product. And as a business, which they are, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar business. They take a lot of money from a lot of people every year, merch and tickets and all the things, right? And they completely disrespected me too many times for me to continue to give them my money and my attention. Our time is valuable. And where I equate this to is that it's the same thing in your personal relationships. If someone's just taking from you, and I don't get any good feelings back from them
I was
at
gonna say,
all.
this sounds like you are going through a breakup.
Oh, dude, I mean,
Are you okay?
38 years I've been with the same team. Well, and I've been justifying it to Vikings fans, right? And being like, look, my wife's a big fan. I've been watching their team now for 6 years. I know their team. I'm a fan of their team, but I always just had like this other thing that I was like, oh well, no, but like I like your team, but I'm really about these guys, and these guys kept kicking mud in my eye, and with the new team, right? And I'm sure I'm willing to go through hard times with somebody else at this point, right? Like I've already put in the time with you, and you've done nothing really for me and nothing to bring joy to my
Well,
life, and
I
I'm
thought
done
we
with
turned
that.
it. I thought you were turning it around on me for a minute.
Well,
Like,
well,
Sarah, I've been with you for a while as a friend. You've done nothing for me. You well, and I was
that's
like,
not
for a minute, I was
true.
like, what the hell are we
That
talking
is
about? Are we talking
not
about the team
true.
anymore? Or are we talking about friendship?
No. Well, and it's one and the same to me. When I think about, the time that sports franchises take from people. I mean, they take time away from people's families. They do for me, right? I don't even watch I never watched the Chicago Bears around my kid because I would get so aggravated, right?
Yeah.
That I would be cussing and I would be mad and angry, and I don't want my kids to see me like that. And what it really came down to was like, I'm not going to put my kids through this anymore, right? They should not have to root for this team that doesn't care about them, these owners that don't care about them, because if they cared, they'd put out a good product,
I
right?
got a question.
Yeah,
You have a swear jar in your house?
no.
Okay, because your kids, because the second episode, whatever we're gonna call it, what people are gonna see here in a few days, where you said the F word about 30 times. And now you're like, I'm swearing, I get angry. I'm like, your kids should really have a swear jar for you. We used to have a swear jar in my house,
Yeah,
and because my husband at the time, the ex-husband, he swore all the time. And man, my kids were making money. They were
right,
making money. Your kids
right.
need a swear jar.
Well, and I'm trying to be more conscious of it, right? So I'm trying to find a balance, and one of those things may be to just stop watching that team, right? I mean,
Yes.
that was the
You-
start for me, was like, oh, I'm just going to stop doing this thing. And not that other things won't, but trying to be more conscious about the words that are coming out of my mouth, trying to be a little bit more intentional with the things, with all the things that we're doing, right? This podcast is an intention. We set out, the first time we talked, to get into the real stuff, to get into real life, to get into ex-husbands and ex-wives and relationships and new relationships and family things. Like,
Yeah.
that's an intention for us. And I think because we've both been through so much, that it makes us really good vessels for those conversations.
Were
And I
you
can't,
married before?
I was, yep.
For how many years?
Just, I mean, barely a year. So we got
Oh,
married.
okay.
I can't remember. I guess it was probably 2 years by the end of it, but got married right before I fled to Mexico, right?
Okay.
On the run from my felonies. And then when I got out of prison in 2018, we got divorced. So married in 15, divorced in 18. So we're
So we're
technically
gonna,
3 years.
so this felony and all this other stuff, we're gonna get into that into another episode because I know nothing about this in any way. So we'll get into that in another episode because I do want to know about this stuff too. And then
Yeah.
we can talk about all my non-felonies. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're the other side of the law, right? You and Danielle are much more akin than you and I.
Well, I am so on the good side of the law. We've all tried the THC tinctures. You need a little bit of that.
Well, and
Okay.
that's the crazy part, right? Is now I'm not afraid to tell people, but I have a medical marijuana card here in South
I do
Dakota.
too.
And that's what I went to prison for, Sarah. I did
Oh,
two
is
years of
it?
my life. I mean, I was selling a lot more than would have ever been legal, but now I have a license to have as much as I had when they busted me, right?
And that's
Like,
amazing. So
I
that's
mean, it's a
why,
little bit hypocritical, right? But it is what it is. I don't think
yeah.
about it because I'm always moving forward, but it's something that my
Well,
mom brings up a lot.
it was part of your life though. That's the thing is all of these steps we go through in our life are there for a reason and bring us to something else. So that's why we can make a whole episode on why you went to the pen, yeah,
Yep.
why you went to pen, all that stuff, and talk about it, especially if it was because of weed, because I am a firm believer in weed should be, especially medically, there for anybody who needs it. We'll
Right.
say
And I
recreation.
was, obviously I was a proponent for recreational this year too, but I'm very happy with our medical program. I don't mind it
Me
staying
too.
like that. I would like to see more access and maybe it not be such a financial burden on some people, but
Yeah,
there's
it's so
things that we can
expensive.
do. there's things we can do as private entities to help do that sponsorship pro. You know what I mean? There's things you can
But
do
this
to
is
help
only
raise
two
money like
dollars at
that.
the
But
store. So
well, and I was just saying the licensing, right? I mean,
yeah,
to get your card and everything after you see a doctor and get your recommendation and all that stuff, you're in probably close to 300 bucks, if not a little bit more, right? And that's before you've been able to buy any product whatsoever. So I think there's some of those things that can be alleviated in a private setting, but it's
yeah.
I mean, that's another podcast in itself, right?
Exactly. We can just me and you can go on and on and on and I can see that we can change a subject in 10 seconds and it's going to go on to something else and something else. But let's go back to relationships, I think. You were married for that long. I was married for 13 years, which seemed like forever and ever and had five children and yeah, it's now that's 7 years ago. I'm finally feeling like I'm over it. This Norton virus keeps popping up on me for some reason. So every time I'm going to come over here, I got to pay a bill, I guess. Who knows what that is? But, but yes, relationships, they're hard to leave when you've been in them for so long. Just like, you and the bear, what did you say it was the bears?
Bears, yep.
Okay. You and the grizzly bears, you and the bears being together for that long. That's how I felt being married is that was my best friend, that was the love of my life at that moment. We did everything together, we had all these children together, and then even though there was a lot of negative things that people didn't know about, a lot of stuff behind the scenes, I couldn't leave because I felt I didn't know how to. I always felt that that person was going to change always. So just like you probably always felt the Bears are going to win. The Bears are going to do this. The
Yeah.
Bears are going to do that. I was like, my husband's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's not going to do this. And I always did that for him. And finally, one day, I came to the realization that it was not going to change. It was not going to change, and I had to leave. And he was never going to leave me. It's like it's the Bears were they're never going to want you to leave. They're always going to be there for you and want you to support them. That's how my husband was. I don't think he would have ever left me. He would have stayed with me forever. And I had to be the one to leave, which was heartbreaking. So heartbreaking for me to be the one because I was the type of person. My mom was married four times. Again, we'll go back to that. She was married four times. So one big thing for myself was no matter what, you stay married. You go to counseling, you work through whatever it is, you will be there for the rest of your life with that person. And so it was the biggest letdown that I had done something wrong. But I hadn't. I just had to leave. And because at some point the love was gone on the other person's end, I noticed that. And so I had to say, okay, I have to leave. And it was heartbreaking, just like you're feeling with the Bears, but it was heartbreaking for me. And I went through a lot. My kids went through a lot. It's difficult. But on a good note, he's a great father. My kids are at his house right now. They go every other week to his house here in town. He does the best he can as being a dad. I do the best I can as a mom. And there it is.
Well, and that's something that, especially this day and age, because, and especially when you go back generations, people stayed in really terrible relationships, really terrible marriages just because of that, whether it was a religious thing or just kind of culture, society, divorce wasn't common, 2 generations ago, probably. And then, kind of our parents' generation, especially your mom, where divorce was almost too common, where it's like, okay, there's no sanctity in marriage anymore. So you're kind of caught in this push and pull. And especially, for you witnessing the divorces and going through that as a child, right?
Yeah.
That's going to leave a mark on you to where you're like, no, I don't want to do that at all. And you kind of go in the
Oh,
opposite way, but realizing that that can have just as many drawbacks and pitfalls as, just saying and calling it quits, probably too early, but, or, with the fear that it might be too early. So it
well, and
totally
that
makes
was the
sense.
other thing is the divorce. You know, I made this comment that last episode that we did where I was speaking of my mother and my father. And I had said, I know it's hard to talk about, but I had said that when they weren't speaking to me and we didn't have a relationship, it felt like the death of my parents to me. That's how it felt. And it was the same with a divorce. If you've been through a divorce, it was the death of my husband. And that's what I told my friends. That's how I felt. That's what I told my counselors, is it felt like the grief to me was he was just completely gone. And still, I mean, I can still get emotional about that because to have somebody in your life that long, that I mean, we got married when we were 23 years old and then had all of these children, a ton of kids together, and we see each other still now. But that love is not there anymore. I mean, that's the thing is the minute I was done, I had to tell myself this person is not for me. This person does not love me anymore. This person, and then on my end, that love was gone. And I can shut it off like that. But the love of him being a father, I have that. He's a great father. He does, like I said, the best that he can with that stuff. Um, but yeah, relationships are hard. And then dating. Ooh, then
Yeah,
you go
you're getting
on,
into
then
the
you go
price.
on
I
dating.
want to I want to hit on another relationship of mine because you talked about kids.
Yeah.
I have a child with a woman that I was only together with for a few years. We were never in a real loving relationship, either one of us. We were so lost and damaged ourselves that we weren't in that. And then you have this kid together, right? And it's been one of the nastiest things that I've ever been a part of. She's been an absolutely horrible person to me, has said insanely hurtful things about me and my family and completely untrue things, right? To say anything and do anything to hurt me. So I don't even have that love for her as the mother of my child, right? Like I can't, how could I? Someone please tell me, like, respect her. Yes, for raising a child. We are raising two children of our own, and their mother is non existent in our lives, right? I am trying to see my son. We have been supporting our son, right? Until this year when things got a little tight at home, right? But also, I'm going to get taxes back that are going to pay all that back child support, just like I got out of $20,000 of back child support before. So my son
Feel
wants
better.
for nothing, right? He doesn't have he doesn't have a need that is not met by me or his mother, right? But I can't have, there's no love in my heart for that woman whatsoever, right?
Well,
There's
if
just
she's
not.
not in your life, if she's not in your life and she's not there for the child, then I get that and I understand that.
Well,
I
and
guess,
my oldest boy's mom is, right? My oldest boy, Judah, he lives with his mom and she takes care of him and she always has, right? I mean, I was gone for 6 years. I'm not going to act like I was a freaking saint, Sarah. We're here to get
yeah.
real. I'm going to keep it a buck with you, right?
You
I
should at least
wasn't a
say the
good
F word
dad.
one time.
Yeah. I'll get my chance, I'm sure. I
Okay.
um I wasn't a good father, right? But when I got out of prison in 2018, I committed to being there for my kids. Getting custody of my younger two kids was the first thing that I did. Getting the divorce and getting custody of the younger two kids to keep them from falling into a bad situation, which I saw was happening. And here we are 5 years later. Those two kids, birth mother who she's gone. She's been gone for 5 years. We have no idea where she is,
Where,
and
oh, I
not
was
that
gonna say,
we
where does
care.
she live? You don't
We
know?
have no idea. We have no idea. We don't, and honestly, I mean, the only time we knew where she was when she was in prison, 2016, 2017, 2018, around that time. Or I guess it was later than that, 2019, 2020. But to us, that's irrelevant, right? Like, we don't argue with her. We ain't trying to seek her out and complain about child support and all this. We just moved on. We had a job to do. We got to raise these kids. I'm not
Well,
worried about that. I'm not worried about that relationship. It was dead, right? That relationship was completely dead. And, I don't know if it was something with my oldest boy's mom where it wasn't dead. And whether she still had feelings for me or she was just a bitter, vindictive person to do what she did, but she's been the absolute worst person I mean, she's still talking crap on me in her TikTok daily, weekly. She is putting stuff out there,
then,
talking smack about me. We haven't been together for 12 years, Sarah. My
well,
son
this is
will
the
be
thing that
13
you
next
got to
year.
do though, is I'm constantly, so I don't know if you know this, but I'm a self-help book kind of girl. So I'm listening to self-help books every single day. I'm working, hypnosis, therapy, doing everything that I can possibly do to deal with that type of stuff. I mean, I also have one child that, my first child, that his dad is a big old POS and lives in a van down by the river and all of that stuff. And I try not to get so angry anymore and all of that stuff. And then that the other thing is it's harder because she's just completely 100% gone. You don't even know where she is. So it's so bad for your children. My son at least knows where his dad is. He's trying to be part of his life, but he's got to take care of everything for his dad. And he's 22 years old.
Right, right. And
And
I
we,
don't know how that's better than what we have because my kids have a mom. Danielle is their mom. She's been with them since they were 2 and 3 years old. She's the only mom they've ever known. And we've told them, and we had a conversation with them this year where we were on the way back from Minneapolis again. We were there this summer and riding back with the kids, and some of the kids had been acting up or whatever it was. And, we kind of stopped them and it was like, look, your genetics do not predispose you to make good decisions, right? I have been to prison. I have been a bad person, right? I'm not predisposed to make good decisions. And this woman who birthed you, who you also carry those genetics, and her whole family were not predisposed to make good decisions, right? So it was like, you kids, the reason we're so kind of hard on you, and I know that we are a little bit harder, and maybe you don't get to be a kid as much, but like little things like stealing and lying, they grow to big things. And with you, they are going to grow to really big problems for you. And I didn't go to prison for 2 years to fix my life so that I could watch you make the same mistakes. Right. And not correct your behavior and to do it at an early age and explain to you why instead of just being like, don't do that. We talk very real to our 8 and 9 year old children. Right.
see, and
I'm not
that
BSing them.
well, and that's good. I guess I was just such a different person. Like I'm listening to you. You do seem like you do have a lot of built up anger inside from your all of this stuff that I'm going to find out about you because what everybody doesn't know is Bubba and I have recently became friends. And so I don't know everything about you. You don't know everything about me. We know what we probably heard around town or because what we didn't say before, our parents may have had a few flings together before, our mom and our dad. But right?
I don't think so. No,
No, they did.
no. Well, I didn't know.
Oh, you didn't know that? They
No.
did. Yeah, they did. So when my mom first got a divorce when we first moved here. Yep. But so we'll get into that a whole other section. But so I'm finding this out about you, and that's what the thing is I have a lot of sadness inside of me, not anger. Mine's sadness. You seem like you have a lot more anger, and that's why I think you and I together can help each other too, because um the only way you're going to be able to be the best dad and best human that you can be is by slowly releasing that. And the same for me. The best human that I can be is by releasing all the sadness that I have and the hurt that I have from other people.
Right.
And
Yeah,
the best
we
part.
process our trauma a little bit differently,
Yeah,
right?
we
And
do.
that's
I I'm crying and you're like,
I'm
fuck.
hot. Yeah.
I'll say it. I'll say it. Okay. I'll be the first one to say it. And so, but yeah, the thing of being a parent is I was the parent that hid everything from my children. So that's one thing that I'm trying to deal with now as I have a 22-year-old, 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and twin 11-year-olds. I hid every single thing from my 22-year-old, or yeah, my 22-year-old boy every time his dad, locked us out of the house and in the snow, and my child's 1 year old crying in a diaper, and I'm just like pounding on the door, let me in, just because he was mad
So
at me. I don't
traumatic.
even know.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's so
I never
traumatic.
told my son that.
Right.
When
Why
my
would you?
yeah, when his dad wouldn't come around, I would make up stuff. Oh, well, it's this, and that. The same thing with my kids now. When I was married, I hid so many things every single night because you got to think bartending world. He was a bartender. So that was our downfall as the bar. Every single night, 3 a.m. came in and he's walking in the door and I've got twin babies and I won't get into that either too much, except for the fact that I hid everything and lied to my children. Where's dad? Why is dad not home for 3 days? Oh, well, dad went out of town for work. No, he didn't. Dad just decided he wanted to go on a binge
Right.
and be gone. And so you and I seem different because maybe you're more honest of, hey, your mom isn't here because of this. Your mom, this. I was the one that always hid everything. And I still do sort of, but I'm getting better at trying to tell the truth. And I think I hid it because I everything was told to me when I was little. Everything was told to me by my parents of what my real dad was, what this, what that. Oh, this, I was abused. I was, like he pulled a gun on me. All this stuff happened. And then me, it was just so traumatic of like, ah. So I
Right.
figured the best thing to do was to hide it all from my kids what was wrong. I mean, there was times when we'll get into my another episode of I have a major sexual assault and my sexual assault when that happened, I was up in my room crying every single night, but my kids didn't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they heard me crying, but
Right.
I would go up there and hide myself, shut the door at 10 o'clock at night and cry and cry and cry, and they knew something was wrong, but I didn't tell them.
Yeah, well, and you think you're hiding it, but you're carrying that, and your kids see it, and they probably hear you crying, and they probably, we think that our kids are maybe not as smart as we give them credit for. And I speak for myself, especially. I know my kids are smart, right? Their test scores
They are.
reveal that they're very intelligent, right? And I'm trying to raise them with emotional intelligence, right? That's what I didn't get. You know why I'm angry? Because that's how my dad came after me. That's the only emotion that my dad could process. Any kind of frustration, any kind of anything, any kind of confrontation was just, I'm going to be bigger and louder than you, right? So that is a lot of why I am the way that I am. And it took seeing that, the situation that happened that I finally kind of cut my dad and his wife out of my life. Now I didn't take them away from their grandchildren, but I don't have to let you FaceTime with them, man. I didn't FaceTime with my grandparents all the time, and that was just 20 years ago. Right. I was very fortunate. My grandparents lived next door at a certain time, but like, I don't need to share all this technology with you. Write them a letter. Write them a letter. They can receive gifts. You'll still get to see them, but at the time of our choosing. You don't just get to be like, well, I'm going to take them this weekend and that weekend. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. No, no, no. And just like leaving the Bears, where it was like, I have to sever my relationship with you completely because you are not going to change. You are the same person you were when I was 16, when I was 26, when I was 36. You haven't changed a bit. Maybe you've gotten better at hiding it, but it all came back. All those memories came flooding back to me this summer as he started to come after me. My dad is a 62-year-old man, right? What are you doing? Or do you want me to beat the crap out of my kid's grandpa? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to smile and I'm going to walk away and I don't have to do this anymore. And you're not going to do this to me. I don't allow anyone else in my life to treat me like that. Why would I allow you to do that?
So this has been going on your whole life
I
or
mean,
more recently?
in spurts, I cut him off, man. Like after I graduated
No,
high
but how
school.
he treated. I'm just saying how like do you have major trauma from when you were a child?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because I just ordered this for somebody for a present today. Do you like to read it all?
Oh, I love to read.
Okay, good. There's this book called Healing Your Lost Inner Child, and it has been a lifesaver for me. It also comes with a workbook. So you buy the Healing Your Lost Inner Child and then buy the workbook to go with it. And that, or you can get it on Audible. I love listening to Audible as well. That is amazing because if you know anything, do you know anything about healing the inner child?
No.
Okay, so the inner child, I'll sum it up, is think about the most traumatic thing that happened to you when you were a child. If you can think about that right now. And if you want to say it, cool. Can you think about what
No,
age
it
you were?
was honestly, Sarah, it was probably that and what reminded me of it with my dad so much this summer was that probably one of the most intense, and I don't remember what I did. I probably stole their weed or something, right? And he grabbed me by my throat and put me like down on the ground in my closet. And just looking at the look in his eyes and remembering that, and it was like, this motherfucker will kill me. Like that's the look in his eyes right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
That I have no love for that. You know what I mean? That
So
he
how
was
old were
done with
you?
me. It was maybe
How old were you?
14,
Okay,
13,
so
14.
yeah, I'm getting chills hearing that right now because I think that that is probably one of your biggest traumatic events when you were young.
Well, and
So
then
just
and then it leads into his whole relationship with Tina. Like
Mhm.
he's mad because his relationship probably sucks. And I can't remember how all the timelines line up perfectly, but it's right around this time that everything changes at home. So I have these confrontations. And then, oh, by the way, I'm just going to go like start this new life right in all your guys' fucking faces, tell you that, it's all good. No, everybody has two moms and everybody has two girlfriends. And like, no, no, that's not normal. But I was 14 and I didn't have the balls that I do now to say, hey, that was fucked up. That was fucked up, man.
Here we go. Two times.
I'm
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I know.
trying to I'm trying to
I
keep
know.
pace with
I,
you now.
and that's the thing, though, is I also am going to try to always make you laugh. Every time that I see you get a little bit upset, I'm going to make you laugh, just because and every time you see me cry, you
Yeah,
can bring
I make you
something else
laugh
to me.
too. That's
Yes,
what
make
we're
me
here
laugh.
for, to
Yep.
lift each other up.
But that's the thing is healing your lost inner child. It's going to give you a timeline that you're going to go through, and you're going to write down every little timeline of something when you were 4, when you were 11, when you were 14.
Well, how
And
about at 6 or 7, we lost my baby sister, right? My mom goes through this traumatic experience where my sister was born but died before leaving the hospital. Now, I don't know this, but my parents were doing a lot of drugs at that time. There was a lot of cocaine around between my brothers and like, but I didn't know any of that, right? I didn't know any of that. I don't know about, I didn't know about the times that my dad was with some crack whore at some motel when we still lived in Illinois, right? I don't know any of these. And these have come out, with my mom
yeah.
and talks that we've had and everything. And at this point, I don't mind airing his dirty laundry, right? You gave this to me. You gave all of that to me when you gave me all of this baggage that I had to carry because you didn't want to carry it.
Well, remember, so we got to get back to the book for a minute,
All
because
right.
this is what you need for me. So I'm going to give you homework. The lost inner
Awesome.
child, because all of those things, when you have that traumatic experience happen, you get lost and stuck back at that. And I have all of these traumatic experiences through my life as well. And it's, crazy. You said that that's your baby sister. You had a baby sister, so
Yep.
she was
Yep.
obviously older than you.
Youngest. No, she would have been the youngest. She would have been
Okay.
the very youngest.
So I had a brother, and this one's a hard one for me too. I from my real dad when my mom and him got a divorce. So I was 2, so I don't remember any of this. My whole life, my mom said, "I think you have a half brother. Pretty sure you have a half brother, and your dad put him up for adoption." And I'm like, I didn't care. I was, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, whatever. My sister always cared though. And so one day I decide to put a post up on social media where you put that little paper up just like this and you say, "Hi, my brother may have been adopted from this place," because I knew some details, even though the real dad said that it wasn't true. Turns out it was true. And a person I know found the baptismal records. And this must have been about 8 years ago, and he had died about 6 years before. He had overdosed, and he lived in Rapid City. He was friends with people that I was friends with. He was 2 years younger than me, and his mother drank the whole pregnancy. She didn't want to have a baby. He was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. He was born at 1.5 pounds, and he survived until he was about 27. I don't know, somewhere right around there. And that was heartbreaking for me to find out, because I found out who he was. It was a real deal. I had a half brother. He was friends with people that I knew. He had died, and it was only 2 years before. And he has a Facebook page, and his name, I know I'm going to cry just saying it. So this is where I cry, but this is a happy cry again. His name was Timothy Wagner in Rapid City. And so if anybody knows him, yeah, I never got to meet him, but so I get where you're coming from with the sister too. I mean, those are traumatic,
Well,
traumatic things.
and what I think about is like how much different is my parents' relationship? Is my dad angry at my mom because the baby, right? Like all the emotions that I never watched them hash out with each other. We just went on a long vacation, right? And that's what I remember. I remember going to Maine. I remember having a sister and then not having a sister. I know her ashes are spread. I remember that. I remember going to Tennessee where we went every year. I remember her ashes being spread there at the cross, in Sewanee, Tennessee. Those are my memories. But I never once stopped to think about how that affected my mom, how that affected my mom and dad's relationship, how it affected my dad, how it affected grandparents, right? Like I never that it was just like your baby sister Maggie's, an angel, right? Because I was 6. My brothers were 4 and 2, like they were babies.
So
We
they
don't
never
remember it
said
all.
what happened. You just
She
know that they
lungs
were.
collapsed. She just was underdeveloped, right? And both my brothers were, right? Both my brothers were in the NICU for a long time, man, and probably due to excessive drug use during pregnancies and smoking cigarettes. And I know my mom lives with that guilt. You know what I mean? I see my mom now, and I know she's living with it.
And
And
where's your mom live?
so my mom lives in Colorado. She's in Wellington, which is just outside of Fort
Okay.
Collins. And
Mm.
my one brother, Jake, my youngest brother, lives there with her, and Zach's back in South Dakota now, but he was down there living with her for 4 or 5 years as well. So having us close has been important to my mom. One of my brothers has always been there, and it's probably due to the fact that she's lost one child already, right? She's already down one child, and I've never given credence to that because it didn't affect my life in that way, right? It didn't affect me in that way because I just wasn't emotionally mature enough to do it. I was 6, like it's
Yeah,
heavy
that's
stuff,
heavy.
right?
That is heavy stuff. I mean, the loss of children is that one we don't even want to step into that tonight because there's too much. That's
Right.
you were young. I have seen a lot of loss of children around me, and I have 5 children, and that's my worst nightmare.
Oh my,
Obviously,
yeah.
you
Just
don't, yeah,
I,
you
I
can't.
don't know how I would ever cope, and I think that's why I'm so adamant. Like I don't want to be overprotective, but I want my children to be prepared for the real fucking world, right? I had to go out there and find it all out on my own because I didn't have parents. My mom was completely abused, wrecked from losing a child, and then a couple years later, her husband decides he's just going to go off and start a new life right over top of the life that he's living with her, right? I can't even imagine what my mom has been through, right? And no, I don't know that she's ever sat down and talked about anybody with it because my mom will just bury it, right? Bury it, keep moving on, bury it, keep moving on. So the pain that my mother must be living with, and now she recently lost her mother as well, who had lived with her for the last couple of years leading up to that. Right, like she's had to deal with so much death just right in her face. And honestly, I wasn't a great part of that either because once I could leave home and not have to go to high school anymore, I was gone. And I was like, not just like, oh, gone. And then I called home once in a while. No, I was gone. I didn't call anybody for 2 years. I was gone. I wanted to get away from it. Mom divorced dad. She went off to try and restart her life. I obviously didn't want to talk to Jim and his wife, right? I didn't want anything to do with them except when I needed money or I needed something because at that point you had just made yourself someone like I didn't respect you. But if you were going to give me money or anything like that, right, I was going to use you. I was going to use you because that's what I saw of that's how people treat people. They just use them for what they want and then they move on. And
Well,
not
maybe, yeah.
realizing that's why I was doing it, right? Not realizing this was a learned behavior. That wasn't me. That attitude was destroying me inside, right? Which leads to the drugs, which leads to the alcohol, which lead like all the things, right? Kind of
It's
stem from
it's crazy
these
that you
small
say
moments.
that because I just had a conversation with my sister Amy today on the phone about our dad, and we were talking about how he had money and we could call him for anything. So she just had some issues, and teeth issues are the worst, and dentists are way too expensive. So we were talking about how we used to be able to call our dad as in Wally, the one who had money, who passed
Yep.
away in January, who's not really our dad, but well, her dad, but he adopted me. And um and so she was talking about, oh my gosh, I've got this tooth issue, and I used to be able to call dad, and he would pay for that. He would pay for that. And she's like, that's the thing is that was his love to her, is she knew that she could call him and he would pay for something if she needed it. And it was the same thing with me, is the love that I knew from this dad that adopted me since I was 4. It wasn't that, oh, honey, I love you every single day and hugging me and doing all this daddy daughter stuff. No, it was $100 left on the table when when we
It
would
was
go
it
see
was
him for the summer.
financial
Yeah,
security.
here's this. Oh, okay, fine. You have a cavity. All right, here's $1,000, so you don't have to get your tooth pulled. Okay, you need this. Fine. Here, you're going through a divorce. And he'd bitch about it every time. Sarah, what the fuck? Sarah, what the fuck? I don't know. Why are you calling me again for money? Oh, and I'm like, I don't have anybody else because I didn't.
Right.
Like, I have nobody else. I don't know what to do. I have to get a divorce. And turns out when you want to get a divorce and you're a parent, they're always worried about a custody battle. So they
Yeah.
make you put down $5,000. I had to put
Yeah.
down $5,000 to go through that divorce. And I didn't have $5,000.
Oh my
I mean,
God, Sarah,
I
if
had
I told
$5.
you what my lawyer bills were for the last 13 years
Oh,
of
I
dealing
would
with my
believe
son
you
and everything,
because lawyer stuff sucks.
almost 100K, right? My son could have gone to Harvard on the money that just I've spent, much less
Oh,
his mother as well, right? But I've always had to show up and defend myself. I've always had to
yeah.
show up and defend myself. I've always had to show up and defend myself just to be a dad when I'm trying to be present and be a dad, right? And then that gets turned and it's like it's such a mess, man. And I'm not here to complain and bitch about my relationship with her. It like, dude, that thing's been dead for so long. We're just trying to get to a point where we can raise our son, that we can see our son, we can have a relationship with him, and he can decide who she is on his own. I don't need to tell him.
Well,
He's going to be raised with this woman too, right? He
that's
will
what
find
I
you out.
want. That's what I want for my children, and that's what hopefully that you can see for your children is let them figure it out on their own because they know. Let let them. Actually, that's the name of another book that somebody just told me I need to read. Let them. Because you can tell them all you want. You can say, "Oh, this and that. This is how I feel. Oh, fuck this, fuck that. Oh, everything was terrible. She wasn't around. Fuck her. Blah 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 blah." But I think it doesn't mean it's right, but I think that hurts them more because I've seen that and I don't like that. And I've heard it with other parents and so I let my kids now sort of see a little bit. If I'm sad and I can't hold it back, and obviously I cry a little bit here and there, sometimes I will just say, well, this happened, and I'll say it in the best way that I can possibly figure out how to say it, because my kids are very protective too in every way, and I can see that now they want to protect me, and so just trying to let them
And
know.
you know why that is, right? Is because they've seen you hurt most of their lives now, some of them that you've been hurt. You've been like someone who needs protection, not someone who's going to protect them. And that's not fair to them either, right? And I think that's why we're doing what we're doing and helping each other. It's so funny what this show has become. And eventually I'm sure we'll get to talk to fans of the show and share their stories, right? But like I'm growing just talking to you and sharing myself and my story and having someone who's like, hey, yes, and also here's this really helpful resource that helped me when I felt the same. So I think Sarah's book club is something that is definitely on the agenda. I would love to be the first
Actually,
one to go
good
and
idea.
buy that. And well, I think it's
Good
important.
idea, because look what I got right here. You are so right. Positive joy. See, I've got all these self-help books around. I've got journals around. I've got everything.
Awesome. Well,
And
you're going to be
Sarah's book
working up a
club.
list now, and everybody's going to start reading them, and we're all going to get better together, Sarah. I got to go pick up the kid from wrestling. We've talked for almost an hour already.
Well, I think that's one thing about us is we can get on a roll. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get on our Facebook page and I'm going to say how we record on Tuesdays and how we post on Fridays. And I'm also going to say what would people like to see us talk about
That's great.
when we
And we'd
get
love to
real.
have some feedback, obviously, from our fans. We know that the Facebook page is growing quickly. We'll get to all the other pages and things, I'm sure, and Instagram and all that stuff is in the future as well. But really love the book club idea. Let's get better together, right? It's called
Yes.
Get Real, but it could be
Let's
called
get
Get
better
Better.
together.
Yeah, it could be
Let's get
called Get
better
Better just
together.
as well.
Can we change it? How
We
about
can,
get real and get better together? That will be the little sign underneath the slogan.
there
Let's
you
get
go.
better together.
I
All
love it.
right.
We just got our
Thank you so
tagline.
much. You know what? I think we are a good team together because I cry, you get angry, and we just kind of meet in the middle. Okay.
Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is Get Real with Bubba and Sarah, and we're going to get better together. I promise.
Yes, we will. All right. Have a good night. Go say
You
hi to your
too.
children for me. Okay.
I will. See you
All
next
right.
week.
Bye.